Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Shaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Please let me know out there if you guys can hear me because my mic keeps kind of going in and out. So I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. And good morning, Spud McKenzie. And Spud gave me, like, in my opinion, a very cool compliment. He says, I'm really going to miss this morning show. This was my Tom Joyner morning show minus the foolery. That's a compliment because I actually like Tom Joyner. I hate to say it. I kind of like some of the foolery that goes on in this show, but that's a major compliment. Thank you so much. So, like I said, the format's going to change a little bit because my internet access is going to change. That's why I'm changing to more so me pre-recording a video, then uploading it as opposed to going live. I just don't want the experience interrupted. And then at some point, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, like I would say maybe like the June, July area when I can make sure that I have a strong enough internet connection, then I'll start doing the lives again. So thank you so much. Like I said, that is a major, major compliment because, like I said, Tom Joyner, that's my dude. He's funny. I lived in California and I used to listen to KJLH in the morning, and that is one of the stations that he would air from. So with that, let's get into our Kids Corner.
He knew every street, every house, and every friendly face. But one day, Timmy's parents told him they were moving to a new town. Timmy's heart sank. The thought of leaving his home, his friends, and everything he knew filled him with fear. The next day, Timmy went for a walk with Mrs. Willow, the kind neighbor who always had a smile for him. She noticed Timmy's sad face and asked what was wrong. Timmy told her about the move and how scared he was to leave everything behind. Mrs. Willow smiled and said, "Change can be scary, Timmy, but it can also be wonderful. Every new place has something special to offer." On the day of the move, Timmy felt nervous, but he remembered Mrs. Willow's words. As they arrived at their new home, Timmy noticed something. The new neighborhood had big trees, friendly neighbors, and even a park nearby. It wasn't so different after all. Timmy took a deep breath, smiled, and thought, maybe change isn't so scary after all. Change can be scary, but it also brings new opportunities and experiences. Just like Timmy, sometimes we need to take a deep breath, embrace the change, and find the good in it. You might discover that the new can be just as wonderful as the old.
Yes. Yeah. Because moving can be challenging, right? For any of us, children, adults, but anytime you're dealing with change, you know, and that's what we're going through a lot of right now, just in the world in general. So let's get to our prayer. And God, please help us to honor you with our body. God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears and help me listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please help me and protect my reproductive organs. Help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if you are joining us here for the first time on Unfiltered Vision News, this is something what we'll say daily, and it's going to be happening for the next 2 days live. Like I was having a conversation when I opened up this morning. I will be airing live until Friday. And then after that, I will be posting. So I will not be joining you guys live 7 to 9 a.m. I am hoping to get back to it. And like I said, once I have a better internet connection, then I will be doing that. So with that, let's get into our morning X topic. Oh my goodness. So today we're going to start off with Eric Swalwell. Apparently, he has resigned. But I wanted to look into kind of how we got here. So let's start there. Now, I came across this video where um, Representative, let me bring it back into focus a little bit. Representative Swalwell, he says, hear it directly from me. This is him posting. These allegations are flat false and I will fight them. Okay, so let's dial this back, see what he has to say.
A lot has been said about me today through anonymous allegations, and I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened, and I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come eve of an election where I have been the front-runner candidate for governor in California. I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past. But those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. I also apologize to you if in any way we've doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public. As a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
Okay, so that's a statement. Now, this was done April 10th. It's the 15th. So this was 5 days ago, y'all. So we had to backtrack a little bit to get caught up. Now, here is a video of him on the 13th. So if Swalwell had just run for re-election instead of California governor, would any of this information, accusations, and video come out? Because I can't believe that members of Congress of both parties didn't know what he was doing. So this is one of the video accusations. This is him. And this is apparently an underage individual. There's no sound, just movement. And he's married. I don't think that's his wife. Fast forward. Here, it's going to come back in. And so now, April Color is posted. The receipts don't lie. If you're unfit for California, you're unfit for DC. The staff knew it, the victims knew it, and now the whole country knows it. So here's a statement from Swalwell on his congressional resignation. And this was as of the 13th. So this was a Monday. I am deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes in judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious, false allegation made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I am aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone in Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. So he's completely walking away. He wanted to make us like, no, you can't just expel me, so I'll just leave. I'm glad he's leaving. I'm glad that you're not fighting this because you can't. You just can't. I mean, exposure. Says, I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. Yeah, because his reelection for his seat doesn't come up till November. It's April. We got like a little over 6 months that they're going to have to cover his job because he has to leave. Yo, wow. That's all I got to say. You are wild with the whole why. Wild. All right, now let's get to this. So, breaking outrage is erupting across Virginia after Abigail Spanberger, and I want to say she's the new governor of Virginia, signed HB 965 into law, effectively rendering Virginians' presidential votes null and void, with the measure handing the state electoral votes to the national popular vote winner, regardless of states' results. So, this is what the bill says. It says presidential electors, National Popular Vote Compact, enters Virginia into an interstate compact known as the Agreement among the States to elect the president by national popular vote. Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States gives the states exclusive and plenary authority to decide the manner of awarding their electoral votes. Virginia agrees to award the electoral votes to the presidential ticket that receives the most popular votes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Okay. So the compact goes into effect when states cumulatively processing a majority of the electoral votes have joined the compact. A state may withdraw from the compact. However, a withdrawal occurring within 6 months of the end of a president's term shall not become effective until a president or vice president has qualified to serve the next term. The bill also provides the manner of appointing electors when such agreement does and does not govern the appointment of electors. This is interesting to me. So now I understand why you guys are trying so desperately to keep people here illegally. And now I get it why you don't want the SAVE Act, because that will ruin your whole situation. Because if you can do this by popular vote, not by electoral vote, you can sway the votes. But what happens when somebody gets elected by the popular vote that you don't like? What happens then? I'm just saying, are you going to flip the script again and say, oh no, we need to go back to this? It's this constant cheating. What is wrong with them? I mean, it's just sad. All right. On situation. All right. Now this has something to do with the video we're going to get into in a little bit. So we're not going to go over that one right now. I'm like, that just got a lot going on. Okay. So here's another top story. Mike Johnson, and I want to say that's her House representative, Speaker of the House, sorry, calls for expulsion of Representative Phyllis McCormick over ethics violations. Oh, this is the lady that bought the yellow diamond ring, and her people received like a $5 million overpayment. Yeah, $5 million overpayment during COVID. They spent the money as opposed to saying, hey, is this supposed to go to us and returning the money? She bought a ring like over $100,000 for herself. So that happened. So she's a Florida Democrat. She faces federal charges for allegedly misusing $5 million in FEMA COVID funds, laundering money through shell accounts, and directing portions to her 2021 campaign and personal use. A House Ethics Subcommittee found her guilty of 25 out of 27 violations. Ooh, ouch. With the full committee set to recommend sanctions on April 12th, that could include expulsion. The effort has rare bipartisan backing from figures like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Anna Paulina Luna. Wow, when they agree on something, that's a lot. Though she denies wrongdoing and calls the charges a clerical error, her criminal trial is scheduled for February 20th. Ma'am, you should have just walked away. You could have walked away from this a year ago and just and been living your best life. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what Alexandria Miss Representative Cortez, what she's got to say about this.
So you think that she should be expelled or should resign?
I would agree with that. Yes.
That she should resign,
Yes,
and if she doesn't resign, she should be expelled.
Yes, and if the ethics committee, because my understanding, as you said, the ethics committee found her guilty, then I would vote in concordance with that. Thank you.
Okay, you heard it. She said it. Wow. What is the world upside down today? Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see. Now, a principal tackles a gunman and stops school shooting in Oklahoma. So on April 7th at Pauls Valley High School, a 20-year-old former student, Victor Lee Hawkins, entered armed with 2 pistols, fired once after a jam, then faced Principal Moore, who tackled him despite being shot in the leg. Moore, a 35-year-old educator, pinned Hawkins with help from the assistant principal until police arrived. No students were hurt. Hawkins confessed plans for a Columbine style attack targeting Moore and others. Now recovering at home, Moore thanked supporters and looks forward to returning to teach. This is intense. So here is, let's see, here's the footage. Let's go back. There's no sound, but here you see the shooter walking in. He gets tackled, and he's fighting to get the gun away from him. Oh my word. So sad. So sad. Well, we need better. Wow. Okay. We are large and in charge. Not body shaming. I'm just saying that's a big guy. Okay. So I'm grateful nobody was hurt. But it's just really to find out hurt. My pastor says it best: hurt people hurt other people. So this individual that came in to do this, he was hurting, right? And with intention to hurt other people, that's just really, really sad. The next top story we have is Pope Leo the 14th Algeria visit draws U.S. conservative criticism. So during his historic first papal trip to a 99% Muslim Algeria on April 13th, so that was on Monday, Pope Leo the 14th emphasized peace, justice, and interfaith friendship at sites like the Martyrs Monument and Great Mosque. U.S. conservatives pushed back hard. Border czar Tom Homan cited border horrors like dead migrants and raped children to argue immigration dangers, while President Trump criticized the pontiff over inflated claims of Iranian protest deaths and nuclear threats. Italy's Giorgia Meloni defended Leo as Trump traded barbs with her. Okay, highlighting global divides between calls for unity and security fears as the Pope heads to Cameroon next. It always fascinates me how much sway they give the Pope. Like, they don't give anybody else this sway. I mean, granted, you've got Paula White in the White House and everything. But if Paula White said something, like, the entire world is not going to be like, oh, what's she going to say next? You know what I mean? Like, but apparently, with Catholicism, there's just this demand to believe the way they believe, and they just have to. No, you don't. You don't have a say. That's my opinion. And you know why you don't have a say like that here in the United States? It's because we do have freedom of religion, period. You worship a certain way. You're Baptist, Protestant, you know what I'm saying? All of these different sects of Christianity, right? They're different. They worship differently. But my question always comes back to, are you worshiping according to the Bible? Because that's all that matters, right? If you're not doing what the Bible says, why are you even here? What are we talking about? There were things going on not just in the Catholic Church, but a lot of the churches. Homosexuality is one of them. The Bible says it's an abomination, but it keeps going on. In the Catholic Church, they have been allegedly accused for, well, I'll just say well over 5 decades of abusing children that have come forth as adults, and they don't arrest these individuals. They just move them to different parishes. And they still continue to do what they've done because that's who they are. But you can't arrest these people. You guys do realize that, right? These priests, allegedly, that have abused these children, they don't get arrested. They just move them. Yeah. Now, we won't even get into the black church. Yes, we will. Where you have homosexuality rampant everywhere. And you know exactly who they are because you've seen them in church yourself. And it's an abomination. Stop that. Standing up there saying you're for God. No, you're not. You are not. You're a sodomite and you're going completely against God. Now, a lot of people say, well, you're just being judgmental. I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying what the Bible says. It's out there. Deal with it. Apparently, you're not dealing with it because you're still doing what is against God with impunity, by the way. Very crazy. Very, very crazy to me. Okay. Just want to kind of clean up some of my tabs here so I can get back to the news. All right. Now, yeah, those were a few of the topics trending on X that I wanted to get to. Now, let's get into some of these updates going on in Iran because it's still a back and forth. Like I said, we are watching the negotiations happen in real time. Is it great? No. I don't like any of this going on. I don't want to see people hurt or injured. Like everybody else out there, I want this to be over yesterday, right? Personally, I want it to be over yesterday, but it's not. So let's get into this first update regarding the conflict in Iran.
In terms of what is happening. Tell us, because it looks like from the outside, we see the blockade, but what else might be going on? What are the kind of touchstones that you are watching for? Do you really think that Iran will legitimately negotiate a deal?
Well, Darren, Dagan, rather, Brian, I was melding your names there. This is where our two worlds connect. With this economic side and the geopolitical side coming together. And I think it's where the United States is so powerful. We are the world's largest economy. We are now the world's largest energy producer. Iran can't mess with us the way they could have 20 years ago. And that's what's happening here. The president's reverse blockade, this idea that it's not Iran who controls the strait, it's the United States, is having the intended effect. And what we're seeing from the folks that track the ships around the Gulf, all those ships are heading to non-Iranian ports to take on cargoes. Nobody's going to the Iranian ports. So if the Americans do let up and let anybody out, it's going to be partnered and allied ships going to our friends who are going to get those cargoes, not the Iranians. They're not going to get the profits from that. And from what I've heard, if this goes on, Iran literally has about a month that they can limp along economically and continue to keep the lights on, keep the water flowing. Those two basic things are about all they'll be able to do. But if they can't start surging product out of the strait, they don't have any options. So I do think they have to come back to the table. The Vice President put a good deal on the table for them in Islamabad. They should have taken it. Maybe they'll take it on Thursday. We'll see.
Let me ask you about the Mossad leader's comments. He's saying, look, we're not going to declare victory here until the extremist regime is gone. President Trump hasn't necessarily used that kind of language. He's indicated he's willing to deal with people who are part of the Iranian regime, but maybe on the more reasonable end. Do you think there's daylight between the Israelis and the Americans on this issue, and is that going to be a problem?
Well, Brian, what I would say is that we are a sovereign nation and Israel is a sovereign nation. A lot of people lose sight of that distinction, and the president had very clear goals for this mission from the beginning. That was preventing the Iranian regime from getting a nuclear weapon, which was an intolerable threat to the American people. When he realizes that goal, he's not going to, that will be the conclusion of the American errand. At the same time, he has said he would like to see new leadership in Tehran. For Israel, the perspective is a little bit different. They're a country of 9 million people, very proximate to Iran. For them, regime change is much more important. That doesn't mean we're in conflict with each other. It just means we have different national interests, which happen in this case to be highly complementary and have led to the extraordinary bilateral cooperation in Operation Epic Fury, where we've worked together so effectively. And I think everyone from China to Russia to Cuba have seen the effectiveness of that partnership and taken note. So I don't see that as a problem. I think that's a perfectly natural thing between allies with different sovereign interests.
You mentioned China. Chinese officials, including Xi Jinping, speaking out on the Iran conflict. The foreign minister calling America's blockade dangerous and irresponsible. Well, of course they would say that because the United States let the Iranian oil not only get loaded onto tankers, but get exported and sold. And Iran was making about $175 million a day. Who was the buyer? 95% of it, it was China. And last year, before the conflict even started, Iran was the third biggest deliverer of oil to China, behind, I think, Saudi Arabia and Russia, provided 11% of China's oil. So sure, China has gotten it good during this conflict, and now it's getting cut off because of President Trump.
It is getting cut off. And what's more, Dagan, the Treasury Department announced this afternoon something they're calling economic fury as the complement to Epic Fury, the military program. And I've always said the second front to this war is economic. You know, a lot of experts will tell you air power won't win a conflict unilaterally. That's true. But you can have this second front, which is economic. That's where our worlds come together. And in this case, what Treasury is saying is all those sanctions are going back on. That temporary waiver is going away. We're going to enforce the heck out of every power we have to prevent Iran from getting a penny. And during the first term, we got them down to 200,000 barrels a day. We can get it lower now.
Victoria Coates, very glad to have your expertise tonight.
Yeah. So now is the economic part. That's what some people aren't talking about. And Uncle Coolwater says, good morning. For instance, Trump won the popular vote. He's talking about the the popular vote around the country, because he did. He won the electoral vote and the popular vote, right? So that strategy will backfire on them. It doesn't matter whatever they're trying to set up, it's not going to prosper, right? God is in control. Absolutely. The ancestors are guiding us and we will be victorious. It's crazy because I was like, okay, you can do what you want. What happens when somebody gets in that you don't like? What are you going to do? Change the rules again? Like, these people are, have you guys, well, people might be younger. Okay. I just remember growing up playing marbles, right? Playing marbles, depending on who you played with, who you grew up with, the rules always change, and they were very arbitrary. And I always remember people changing the rules as we went along, right? If they were losing. That's what this is, right? And even with this whole thing with the Strait of Hormuz, it's the same thing. It's like they're losing. It's like, oh, we got to change the rules. We got to change the rules. So we're in a better position, right? So let's continue to look at some of these updates going on with the Strait. This one, I might not play the whole thing, but I want to get through them. I've got about 3 of them that I wanted to play for you guys, just different perspectives. Now, that one was Fox News, and they're talking about the economic perspective. This video from the Daily Signal, it touches on a little bit of that, but it also looks at what's going on with Iran and kind of the position they may be in the negotiations.
Hello, this is Victor Davis Hansen for the Daily Signal. I think we should take another look at the Iranian war, and I would call it a longer view, not the short-term 24-hour news cycle. What's happening right now is the media and the left wing of the United States political on the spectrum, the Democratic Party, and they are a nexus now, a Borg. They react in 24-hour cycles. So anything that looks unfortunate from the point of the American success in Iran, they cling to. So on last Monday, it looked like Donald Trump, after his tweet on Easter that he was going to end the civilization of Iran, and I mentioned before he meant the regime, the theocracy, the civilization of radical Shia jihadism in Iran, they wanted to impeach him. They said he was a warmonger, a Hitlerian figure. The next day, he announced that negotiations would take place, and then he was a taco, a Neville Chamberlain, a George McGovern, a Jimmy Carter. Trump always chickens out. But it's indicative that they don't look at the war empirically. They look at it entirely in political terms. In fact, people as diverse as Tom Friedman or Bill Kristol, if you collate what they have written, they almost feel that anything that happens negatively in Iran might be positive because it would hurt Donald Trump, and then therefore that would be in the long-term interest, forgetting that we have 100,000 soldiers in the theater risking their lives, and they're risking their lives to eliminate the real opportunity, the real likelihood that Iran could get nuclear-tipped missiles very quickly, not just aimed at Western Europe, but in 2 or 3 years, perhaps the United States as well, given the participation of North Korea, China, and Russia in their arms industry and their agenda. So we have to look at the long version. And the long version is the only way we can do that is look at history. And history says it's very unusual that one side has been so victorious in an asymmetric war, especially against the strongest power in the Middle East by all accounts. 93 million people. A huge territory, and people were terrified of it, not just the Gulf monarchies, but the Europeans. They de facto, we say the strait was open before the war. Yeah, it was open, but it was open on the conditions that Iran would close it any minute or could make things difficult. Prior to this closing, it had closed it in 1980, 79 and 80, and again in 2019. And it threatened to do it on many occasions. It's not going to be able to do that when this war. So if you look at it realistically, very quickly, they don't have a military, so to speak. They have lost probably hundreds of billions, if not $500 billion in a half-century investment in missiles, in drones, and sophisticated aircraft, in submarines, in capital ships. Their command and control is down to the second and third tier, and no one knows who's in power. We don't know if it's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. We don't know if it's the political class. We don't know if it's the theocracy. We don't know if it's the army. But we know two things, that they are each afraid of each other. They don't want to seem as if they're too compliant, so they want to be as hardline as possible, but we don't know what that really represents. If all of these communiques that are so lunatic may be just intended for internal consumption. The other fear they have, any one of them is looking at these 4 different groups and says, if they cut a deal with the West, or the United States in particular, and there's a transitional figure, and the people take over, we're all going to be dead for what we've done. And so it's a very fluid situation politically. But militarily, it's clear that this has been an overwhelmingly devastating war for Iran. And who are the winners and losers of it? Take Russia. Russia has no presence in Venezuela now. It has no presence in Latin America. It has no presence in the Middle East. Its Assad regime is gone. It had a drone back and forth relationship with Iran. Maybe it's supplying some weaponry across the Caspian Sea we don't know about, but for all practical purposes, that's been severed. It's bogged down in a war with Ukraine. It's lost over 1.5 million people. It enjoys a little spike in the oil prices, and that may help it, but it would be much more likely that they would want to now get out of the Ukrainian war, have some kind of deal armistice and then have sanctions lifted off them because they feel that maybe the Strait of Hormuz doesn't have a good future, which turns us to the Gulf itself. The Strait of Hormuz has 20%, not 80%, 20% of the world's oil going through it every day. The Saudis are going to expand their Red Sea pipeline. The Emirates are going to expand their pipelines that serve other countries that are oil producers in the Gulf of Oman. They're talking about going across the desert through Jordan to Haifa. And you could envision in 4 or 5 years, the Gulf might only serve Iran. Instead of being an asset, it could be a liability. If anybody wanted to close it, it would hurt, Iraq and Iran more than anybody else. I mean, Iran has other ports, but it would be an inert asset. And so holding on to the strait and threatening the world means that people are going to find alternative oil supplies. And they're already doing it with the U.S. and Venezuela. And if Russia is smart, it will try to find a ceasefire and join in this alternate supply that's non-Gulf. China has been hurt because it got 80% of all Iranian oil, and that'll be contingent on the United States. It's already contingent whether they get Venezuelan oil on the United States. It won't be sold to them at a discount. They look at the war, and what do they say? What do they see? They see that drones, submarine drones, surface craft drones, aircraft drones, and now the United States has broadcast to the world they're going to acquire, 500,000, 1 million of them. They're late to the party, but when we get riled up and we get activated, we can outproduce almost anybody. And the idea that they're going to go across 110 nautical miles into Taiwan after what they've seen in Iran would be very foolhardy. The United States fleet could sit on the other side of Taiwan, arm Taiwan to the teeth, which they're doing now, and it would be very hard for hundreds of, if not thousands of Chinese shipping to come across that strait without being under a constant fire from a sea of ballistic missiles and drones. Europe is a big loser. We didn't ask all that much of them. We just said supply us by letting us use your bases and your airspace. That was a very modest. They wouldn't do that. The Spanish closed their embassy in Israel, and they kept it open and around. For all practical purposes, Spain is a belligerent. France wouldn't let us use its air power. They won't even go into Lebanon, their special post-colonial friend and responsibility, and help get rid of Hezbollah. Britain said they were going to go protect their interest in Cyprus. They have a base that was targeted. They can't even send one destroyer there. Turkey is a NATO member, and what has Turkey been doing? It's been really siding with Iran, and it's threatened to invade and attack Israel, a NATO partner. That's our other NATO partner. Italy, we thought, was a close conservative friend. They wouldn't let bombers land in Sicily. The UK has been the most disappointing. Maybe it'll try to help. It doesn't have much resources anymore. It's sad to say, given the history of the Royal Navy. But my gosh, if we were to say, if we had said to Margaret Thatcher when she asked our aid in 1982 to help in the Falklands, we could have just quoted what Stumer would later say. This is not our war. It's not our war. It's not our war in Serbia. It's not our war in Libya. It's not our war in Chad. So you can see the problem with NATO in name only, and it will be a bilateral. It'll be a bilateral alliance, I think, more and more, that the United States will pick and choose which NATO members that it will fully work with, because the rest are either neutral or hostile to the United States. And finally, the United States, if this war ends in 2 or 3 weeks, it'll still be 7 months for the economy to recover, and the oil will start flowing out of the Gulf, and more importantly, Venezuelan oil, American oil, and even perhaps Russian oil will get on the market to capture these high prices, and people will avoid the Gulf as much as they can, and the Gulf will be opened one way or the other. And so there's a good chance that the economy can return, and there's a better chance that people will come to the realization after this 24-hour hysteria and media cycle and left-wing fanaticism is over. When they look at the situations empirically, they're going to say, my gosh, Iran is not threatening the Middle East. My gosh, they don't have a ballistic missile threat. They do not have an immediate avenue to get nuclear weapons. They have no military. Their entire command and control has been wiped out. Their population is furious. It's stewing. This could be like the fall of the Berlin Wall, which not the next day, not the next week, not the next month, but within months, or in the case of the Soviet Union, within 2 years, you could see a regime change. So the United States is in a good position, especially because we chose not to fight on the conditions that we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, where we're fighting house to house in Taji or Fallujah, or we don't know who's friend, who's the enemy in a village in Afghanistan. Now, this was fought on Western American terms, and the asymmetry shows it. So we don't know what the ultimate prognosis of this war is, but if we take the long view, it's far more favorable to our interests than it is our enemies. Thank you very much, Victor Davis Hanson.
Yeah, I like his perspective. He's pretty calm about it, but I want to say, he does bring up a good point. People kind of live and die by this 24-hour news cycle, and it's like up and down and up and down and up and down, instead of, like he was saying, more of a long-term view. It's like, okay, so what does this really look like at the end of this year, or even in 5 years, right? So now I wanted to play another video. Now, this is actually showing some bombs that Iran has dropped on U.S. allies in Iraq.
I hope you guys are doing great wherever you're watching from today. I'm filming this on April 14th, and it appears Iran has launched another attack, this time striking more targets in Iraq, as we are technically supposed to be in a ceasefire. The bombs continue to fall, and we have footage of a fighter jet engaging Iranian drones, as well as more proof that bombers are on the move, plus an update released from the military about the United States blockade of the Strait of Hormuz for any ships leaving Iranian ports. So we got a lot to get into. I'm going to break it all down, show you all the footage. Before we get into it, as always, please make sure to like and subscribe. Totally free, huge boost. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Is the blockade working? Should we get rid of the ceasefire and start this war back up officially? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the notification bell. All notifications turned on. You won't miss a thing. And then Instagram, David_Hookstead, XD Hookstead. That's where you can find me on social media. My DMs are wide open. Send me any tips you got. Now, let's get into it. So right here is footage of the IRGC launching drones. We're going to show the aftermath and the actual strike into Kurdistan. The Kurds, of course, aligned with the United States. They were hit today with a massive Shahed drone attack. Right here, you can see the aftermath. You can see the smoke in the air after the drones hit a Kurdistan area. Damage there. Again, this is during the ceasefire. Iran and the IRGC still firing. Significant damage on the ground. And then right here is the footage of the drone coming in. And right there, massive explosion. Let's watch that again. So this is in Kurdistan. Again, ceasefire means nobody's supposed to be shooting. Negotiations, they're trying to start those back up. Clearly, the Iranians are not listening. The IRGC is essentially speaking out of both sides of its mouth, claiming, oh, we want to negotiate with the U.S. But what have I said from the start? They have no intention of stopping shooting. Just yesterday, I made a video. They launched a bunch of drones into Bahrain. Now they're launching them into U.S.-friendly locations in Iraq. And it goes to show this ceasefire is far, far from legitimate. And then right here, a French Mirage 2000 fighter jet shoots down an Iranian Shahed drone with an air-to-air missile over northern Iraq. Right there. Boom. Direct impact. And then you can see the fighter jet peel off right there. Let's give it one more quick look. I mean, that is, look at the impact. Just right to it. And then right here, you can see the missile away, and then impact. You can hear the loud boom. So you're going to see the missile trail right there, missile away, missile in the air, and then impact right there. Now, as this is going on, I'm going to bring this up. We have more reports of mysterious explosions erupting in Iran, nobody knowing the cause, nobody knowing what is going on. We had some of these earlier today that I talked about in the video this morning. And now we have more of them. Remember, before the war started, you had all these gas leak explosions in Iran. I was very clear that I thought those were clandestine and covert sabotage operations. Then the war started and you had actual bombs falling. Now in the ceasefire, the mysterious explosions continue in Iran, with Shin reporting 3 blasts heard from the Parshin military complex side of eastern Tehran. So this is reporting we have 3 blasts. And then right here, an update was followed saying that if there were 5 blasts in total, 5 unexplained blasts. It's unclear if these blasts were in the same location, general vicinity of each other, but they were all in Tehran. So one instance, we had 3 unknown boom, boom, boom. Then we had 5 back-to-back explosions, one after another, as it appears sabotage operations in Iran are certainly still underway. Now, we've been talking about the bombers. We've been talking about the B-52s and all of that. What you see here, this comes from Defense Geek, says Judgment Day is coming, ? Last week, we heard rumors that additional U.S. bombers might be moving to the United Kingdom, partly due to engineering issues with a couple of the bombers already there. Today, it looks like we have our movement with B-52, call sign Scalp 93, being towed. These are just the ones with the transponder on. We do not know about ones without transponder on. So B-52 bombers are on the move from the United States of America. They are being towed, as they call it, by the refueling tankers over the Atlantic, where they stage then in the United Kingdom. They then conduct their bombing runs from the United Kingdom, being refueled there and back. So you got KC-135 refuelers in the air, and we have B-52 bombers in the air, believed to be headed for the United Kingdom, as this war could flip back on at literally any given moment. So we got a lot more updates. Stick with me here. While we have bombers on the move, we also have, hold on one second, I'm going to tee this up. We also have at this hour a P-8 Poseidon. That is a Navy signals intelligence spy plane, sub hunter, can do a lot of different things, and an MQ-4C Triton drone. They are both in the Persian Gulf, spying on Iran as we have the blockade, the U.S. blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. Keep in mind, the blockade only applies to the ships that are visiting Iranian ports. That does not apply to anyone visiting Qatar, Bahrain, our allies. But if a ship goes to an Iranian port, loads up, we are going to stop that ship. We are not going to let that ship get to the open ocean. And we have made it clear we are even willing to board those ships. Now, on that note, U.S. Central Command releasing a statement on the blockade, saying more than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, and airmen, along with over a dozen warships and dozens of aircraft, are executing the mission to blockade ships entering and departing Iranian ports. During the first 24 hours, no ships made it past the U.S. blockade, and 6 merchant vessels complied with the direction from U.S. forces to turn around to re-enter an Iranian port on the Gulf of Oman. The blockade is being enforced impartially against all vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, including all Iranian ports on the Arabian Gulf, and Gulf of Oman. U.S. forces are supporting freedom of navigation for vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz from non-Iranian ports. So they turned 6 ships around. 6 ships attempted to run through the U.S. blockade. The U.S. Navy stopped them. They turned around and went back to Iranian ports. Now, right here, I'm going to put this up on the screen. So remember, there was a waiver for Iranian oil that was already at sea when the war started. That waiver is going to expire, and the Trump administration is not going to let that continue. Why is that? Some estimates say the Iranian government only has enough resources to run the government for 30 to 45 days. So we are going to choke point all their oil, all their money, and see maybe if we can bring this regime crashing down without having to drop more bombs. Now, if we have to drop more bombs, we will drop more bombs. But this is economic warfare, if you will. We are strangling them economically. We are not letting them get their money in. We are not letting them get their oil out. So the blockade is underway now. Once this waiver expires on April 19th at midnight, 12:01 a.m. Eastern on April 19th, the Iranians will be completely cut off from the world. Now, I do want to show you this as well. This is some high-resolution satellite imagery from April 10th that shows the destroyed U.S. aircraft on the landing strip we built for the we built it before the rescue operation for the F-15 weapons officer likely was going to be used to go to Isfahan. I don't know that. That's speculation on my part.
Okay, and I've got the rest of that video, and I'll make sure you guys have the link so you can watch it. But again, it's going back to economics now. Okay. This is all economic. All right, let's get our Promethean update.
On notice with this post. This is world extortion, and leaders of countries, especially the United States, will never be extorted. That's not a threat, that's an exposure. That's a man who is named a hidden game, a game fought in the shadows for decades. And here's what this president sounds like when he knows he has won this round.
Make a deal or not makes no difference to me. And the reason is because we've won. But from my standpoint, I don't care.
And here's what he's demanding.
They haven't left the bargaining table. I predict they come back and they give us everything we want. And I told my people, I want everything. I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I told them, I want everything.
They have no cards. That is the verdict of a president who hasn't just changed the outcome. He's changed the board itself. Now, right now on social media, there are people, including some who voted for Trump, who are calling for the 25th Amendment, saying he's lost it, he's reckless, he started a war nobody wanted, and now he's telling us he doesn't care whether we win or lose. Well, here's what they're missing. Iran is not the target. Iran is a node, a piece on the board the British Empire has managed for over a century. And the president's real target is the infrastructure of imperial control itself. The financial choke points, the energy dependencies, the offshore banking apparatus. He's naming it, and he's forcing a hidden war into the daylight where it can finally be fought and won. I'm Susan Kokinda, and I've watched the empire operate in the shadows for over a century. Now it's out in the open, and if you want to understand what that means, then hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons. I'm going to cover three things today. First, how Trump flipped the Strait of Hormuz extortion operation and why Keir Starmer isn't happy. Second, how Iran's financial pipeline is being rolled up and why that leads to London. And third, why Britain's own military chief just confessed that the empire has no war plan. So for over a century, the Strait of Hormuz has been the empire's ultimate leverage point. Whoever controls it controls who prospers and who doesn't. Britain managed that choke point through Iran, through successive regime changes that go back to Mossadegh. But it was different regimes and the same imperial function. Keep the region unstable, keep the choke point contested, keep the world dependent. That's the protection racket in its purest form. The mob breaks your windows, keeping the region unstable, keeps the ships from moving, and then charges you for the protection that makes passage possible. Lloyd's of London was the insurance arm of the racket. You want your ship to transit the strait? Then buy our coverage. And the City of London collected a cut on every ship. Iran breaking windows was good for business, because up until now, Lloyd's just raised the premiums. Then Donald Trump moved to shut down the racket, and Lloyd's canceled all the insurance. The president told his Treasury Secretary, move in and have the U.S. provide insurance. He broke their financial arm first. Now he's finishing the job militarily. He's ending world extortion. On Fox yesterday, here's what the president said.
We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like and not people that they don't like or whatever it is. It's going to be all or none, and that's the way it is. And it'll be, you saw what we did with Venezuela. It'll be something very similar to that, but at a higher level.
All or none. No imperial management, no picking winners and losers. The choke point is American now, not just because America seized it, but because America named what it actually was and is refusing to play the game any longer. And this morning, we got the clearest possible confirmation of what has actually changed. Keir Starmer, the prime minister of the country that managed this choke point for a century, was asked whether Britain would join the American blockade, and he said no. Now, the president has described Starmer's position throughout this Iran conflict very clearly, characterizing it more than once as a, quote, Neville Chamberlain statement. So the mob's enforcer has been neutralized. Now, admittedly, Keir Starmer is a pretty pathetic excuse for a Don, but his bluff has been called. The choke point the British Empire managed for a century is now an American operation. Britain didn't lose access to the strait. Britain lost the game. Now, if you want to understand the full depth of this fight, the imperial architecture that the president is dismantling, and what it means for America's future, you need to be reading Promethean Action. So subscribe to our free newsletter. The link is in the description. Now, that's the physical side of the protection racket. Here's the rest of it. The U.S. is targeting the money flows to the guys who break the windows. Let's start with Dubai. The conservative treehouse flagged the story today in a post entitled, "Cut Off the Money. The U.S. military will start enforcing embargo." They report that the blockade is happening against the little-discussed backdrop of Dubai targeting Iranian money changers. Dubai was the washing machine where oil proceeds went in and clean dollars came out. UAE authorities arrested dozens of IRGC-linked money changers, shut down their companies, and closed their offices. The Gulf states just shut the machine off. But that's not all. 2 days before Epic Fury launched, Treasury Secretary Bessent deployed Section 311 of the Patriot Act against Ember Merchant Bank in Zurich, which has laundered over $100 million of IRGC money. Ember is now being liquidated, and Secretary Bessent's statement wasn't just addressed to Iran. Banks should be on notice that the U.S. Treasury will aggressively protect the integrity of the U.S. financial system using the full force of our authorities. Now, Section 311 is the nuclear option of financial warfare. Bessent used it 2 days before the war began. That is not a coincidence. And here are a few other publicly named institutions that could be next, and they're headquartered in London. 2 London-registered crypto exchanges processed roughly $1 billion for the IRGC since 2023. And Santander UK ran Iranian petrochemical front companies right near Buckingham Palace. So the City of London's books are open, and Bessent has shown he knows how to read them. Iran's money is being cut off from the Gulf to London to Zurich. Its neighbors have now chosen sides, and the choke point is named and claimed. So what does Britain have left? This week, Britain's own military chief told us. Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton admitted that the United Kingdom is updating its government war book, a strategic blueprint which has not been actively maintained since the Cold War, that is, for 30 years. Institutional knowledge has been lost, muscle memory diminished, and several years of calm has created a situation where very few in the UK would know how to respond to a war footing. 30 years, no functioning war plan. Why didn't that matter until now? Because Britain had the United States. For the 3 decades, the empire ran its geopolitical agenda on American muscle. Washington provided the troops and the carrier groups. London provided the financial plumbing and the narrative management. The City of London didn't need a war plan, and it required only one thing, an America that never asked questions. Now, that arrangement had a brand name, NATO. Britain has been the key architect of NATO's political direction since its founding, shaping its missions and its mandate and pointing American power where the empire needed it, like Iraq, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan. Every one of those wars had British intelligence fingerprints on the trigger. NATO was the mechanism, and American taxpayers and American soldiers were the instrument. Trump has now called all of that into question. and the British establishment hasn't recovered from the shock. Because without American muscle, NATO is a bureaucracy with a flag, and without NATO, Britain has no war plan. So, Sir Knighton's admission isn't a military embarrassment. It's a civilizational confession. But the empire's lost something else. For 20 years, the ideology holding much of this together was the green transition. That energy dependency didn't matter because renewables were coming. And then the Iran war blew that apart. When the strait closed, the green narrative couldn't keep the lights on or the filling stations supplied. Reality asserted itself, and the people who lived closest to physical reality felt it first. Irish farmers and truck drivers have been out in the streets, in force. 600 of Ireland's 1,500 filling stations out of fuel, and the Irish Defence Forces deployed against their own farmers. Although there are reports that a lot of the police and the military are calling in sick. Now, these aren't radicals. These are the people who live in physical reality, who need fuel to farm, to haul, and to heat. And they're calling the question. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer told the British public he is fed up with energy bills being affected by decisions involving Trump and Putin. Really? The prime minister of the country that built the choke point system, that ran the offshore banking apparatus funding the IRGC, and that imposed a green regime on his own country, is blaming Trump and Putin? That's not a political statement. That's a confession of defeat. So while the press is asking whether Vice President Vance got a deal in Islamabad, it's the wrong question. President Trump answered the right one before the talks started, when he said he didn't care about the outcome, because he'd already won the game that mattered. He dragged the extortion racket into the open. The empire ran the world through choke points that were never named, financial pipelines that were never traced, and a military arrangement that was never questioned. Concealment was their operating system. Promethean action has been shining the light on that system all along and building the forces that can now back up the president in ending the empire's extortion racket. So if you want to be part of that.
So again, it's coming back to the finances. I'm just saying, every video that I've played for you guys, it all has come back to the finances. He's exposing people. Now, he drugged some people. He drugged Alex and Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. Because they were like, he's being drugged around by Netanyahu. Now, to be fair, the way things were, I would say, crafted together by the media, and if you followed the media, of course, that would be your perspective. But hindsight now, and of course, with this new information we have, it's like, oh, well, if he was trying to expose the finances, I could see how they would shape it that way. So you would be distracted from the fact that we've just been hustled, in short, right? We've been pimped for a long time. I mean, that's just what it is. It is what it is. We've been pimped, been hustled. I won't say bamboozled, but I will say pimped and hustled. Definitely the UK has been pimping us, and they've been like, yeah, you're just going to do what we want you to do, and don't question it. And it's been going on for a long, long time. But now he's bringing it out. Now what you going to do? Now what are you going to say? What leg do you now have to stand on? So again, I know some people out there, he's crazy. This man is a CEO. This is what he does. And you're not used to somebody with this kind of temperament. A lot of people are like, well, maybe he wouldn't be himself if he would try to change his tone and temperament. He is who he is. Again, you are dealing with a CEO. You are not dealing with a politician. This dude, this guy, okay? He is a bull in a china shop, but you voted in the office. And then you got mad when you couldn't rein in a bull. I'm just saying. It's very difficult. So we'll see where this goes next. Now I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will get into some more of this news on our Women and Wellness Wednesday. It is open mic, so if anyone out there would like to join me on the broadcast with any topics that you would like to bring up or discuss, they can be topics that I've brought up or a topic that you may want to bring up. Please let me know. And again, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and I will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. With the energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Taking your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Now, one thing I wanted to get into, because we've been so busy tracking what's going on with this whole situation in Iran, anybody realize that we're still in a partial government shutdown? Like, that's still happening. They still have not resolved this, by the way. So I wanted to get an update. Okay, it's been going on since February 14th. It's exceeded 60 days. And has anybody seen any news coverage of this? I haven't seen anything. They sent ICE to the airport and everybody stopped talking about TSA. He was able to pay TSA out of emergencies fund and nobody else has talked about it. What's going on? So the shutdown stems from partisan disagreements in Congress over funding and reforms of immigration enforcement agencies with DHS, particularly ICE and CBP. It was triggered after earlier short-term funding extensions expired without agreement on border reforms, linked in part to incidents involving border agents. A brief earlier shutdown occurred in late January, lasting about 4 days and affecting more agencies. So immigration enforcement, ICE and CBP continues operating using prior supplemental funding and is largely unaffected. So again, everybody else is suffering. They're paid. They're going to be paid. You got TSA agents quitting their job and getting hired by CBP and ICE so they can be paid. Y'all are weird. So the DHS components operating under funding lapses include the TSA, right? And they're leading to longer airport security lines, staffing shortages, and some officers working without pay. The U.S. Coast Guard, FEMA, the U.S. Secret Service, non-protective operations, of course, and U.S. Citizenship Immigration Services and non-enforcement functions. So anybody who may have been applying for citizenship, all that's shut down. You can't get in anymore. All your stuff's on hold because they cannot pay them. So furloughs have affected thousands of civilian employees, though many essential workers continue without immediate pay. Back pay is typical provided once funding resumes. Travelers have faced noticeable delays at major airports. So recent developments, Republican leaders, House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune announced a two-track plan in early April to fund DHS, one package for most of the department, and a separate track for immigration border agencies. President Trump has indicated support. Okay, we'll see what happens. Now, the Senate has passed funding measures at various points, including compromises to fund non immigration parts of DHS, but the House has not always aligned, with some Republican pushback against certain deals. So Congress returned from a 2-week recess. So they went on vacation because they don't care. It's who they are. But no final resolution has passed as of now. Action could occur in the coming days or weeks, though timelines remain fluid amid ongoing negotiations. President Trump has mentioned potential executive actions to ensure pay for certain workers like TSA, but the core issue requires congressional appropriations. So negotiation continues on both sides, digging in on immigration policies, priorities, betting markets, and an analyst have suggested the shutdown could extend into May without a breakthrough. A short-term continuing resolution or full-year funding bill remains the most likely path to resolution. So I said, have there been talks of privatizing TSA, right? And have there been any talks? So people have been stating, like, should there be a privatized TSA? Then that way we wouldn't run into the situation definitely at the airports. So yes, there have been active ongoing talks about privatizing parts of TSA, especially intensified by the current partial government shutdown that has caused long airport security lines and unpaid TSA workers. So the Trump administration's budget proposal, released in early April, White House budget explicitly calls for beginning the privatization of TSA airport screeners, cutting about $52 million from TSA funding, requiring smaller airports, category 3 and 4, typically those with lower passenger volumes, to join the existing screening partnership program. Now, if anybody's been to a smaller airport, let's see, I'll use South Bend as example because that's where I was born. That's where I'm from. It's a small airport. It's more of a charter airport. It's gotten a little bit bigger. They have like, what do they call them? The 737s. So they're smaller Boeings. They would require them to be on the screening. I find that funny because right now they're not. Just saying. The screenings are a lot different. So under SPP, private security companies approved and overseen by TSA. So the government's still going to be involved. Handle passenger screening instead of federal TSA officers. TSA would still set standards, conduct testing, and maintain oversight. So it's like the government running the private company. So those private companies would still be contracted with the government, but the government would have less control in what we see this nonsense now where they're controlling paying TSA directly. Here's my thing. Government does not know how to run anything, and you need to stop. You're not a business in that way, but you're making yourself a business and you're proving failure. I'm just saying. This would lead to the elimination of roughly 4,500 federal screening jobs at those airports, with broader TSA workforce cuts up to 8,400 to 9,400 positions total, about 14%, as part of efficiency reforms. The proposal is framed as a way to save money, make operations more efficient and flexible, insulate airport security from future government shutdowns, right? It's not a full immediate privatization of all TSA screening nationwide. It's a starting point focused on smaller airports, building on the existing SPP. Yeah, they want to do smaller airports because they want to see how it would function in bigger airports. This is conditioning. Yes, that's all it is. Shutdown impact, projected 2025 enters legislative efforts. So, the TSA union strongly oppose it. Yeah, because they're going to lose all their government contracts and money. Arguing privatization could reduce safety. No, it won't. You're just going to be losing your money. lower training standards, and lead to worse service. No, you're just going to be losing your money because actually privatization would make it more efficient because there are some airports right now that have already privatized it and they're running like nothing's happening because it's privatized because it's not governed by TSA in that way. Yeah. So we'll see. We will see. But again, I just wanted to bring that up because, yeah, we're still in a partial government shutdown, even though nobody's talking about it. This is dumb. This is just silly. I'm like, y'all, come on. If you don't, the people that you're upset with, you're not affecting their lives. They don't care, but you're affecting everybody else's life. Y'all are just weird. Anyway, so I want to play this video from Melanie King. Now this one was kind of dark, but very on point as to where we are at right now and where we're going, and especially with Agenda 2030.
Citizens, your overnight account balances have been updated. Time to start a productive day.
Final notice, your account balance is below 500. You need 50 credits by the end of the day to avoid automatic eviction. If you have missed work due to illness, you must provide a doctor's note to reclaim your credits.
Any extra credits? Please.
Tensions are high today, with more people planning to join the Citizens Against Digital Control protest. Remember, the government knows who you are at all times. Resisting is not worth the consequences. All of their newest social credit systems are designed to keep you and your families safe and efficient.
Authorities seized a record balance of an individual's credits, citing excessive hoarding.
Traffic violation detected. 7 miles per hour over the limit. 75 credits have been automatically deducted.
You have to be fucking kidding me!
Yep, you got the flu. Your blood work shows a significant iron deficiency. I recommend incorporating more red meat into your diet.
Dr. Jones, your taxes were not filed and have been automatically deducted with late fees. Your medical license has been revoked.
Oh, hell nah, I filed an extension.
Purchase denied. Monthly red meat allowance exceeded. Try mealworms instead.
Can you guys please let me through?
Attention. Unauthorized political gathering detected. Participants' access to financial services has been suspended. Due to the speeding infraction, your car will be immobilized for 3 days.
Fuck you! Take your surveillance policies and rot in hell!
You've earned 50 bonus credits for reporting your neighbor's hateful misconduct. This content exceeds your current social credit tier. May we suggest citizen responsibility?
Now, this was, sorry if the quality is not going to be the greatest, guys, but I thought this was a good kind of AI movie to show where things are headed and where they want them to go. Guys, they have said all of this. Even the mealworms, eating bugs, I kid you not, every single thing you saw was exactly the plan and the agenda they have for 2030, except for it's worse. What they actually want to happen. You may say this is a far off thing. That couldn't happen. Who would do this? How would they be able to do it? Well, then that's when we're going to get back into Peter Thiel, Palantir, the mass surveillance, digital ID, and how that's all linked to this, and then the Antichrist.
Palantir thing was very odd. A lot of people feel that this is the precursor to, social credit score, a digital kind of police state, and that it's being done under the guise of security, that you will be safer.
Which is what the Patriot Act was brought from.
That's exactly right.
It's always the case. It's always the case. They always sneak it in, like, you gotta be safe.
Yeah.
And then you get the Benjamin Franklin quote.
the people that want security, right? They something about they deserve neither. Yeah. The trade liberty for security deserve neither. Yeah, I mean it's true.
And if you don't know, JD Vance is Peter Thiel's essential Manchurian candidate. Just do the research. That is his guy. That's why there's a whole deep rabbit trail to go on that. So he's always trying to like dismiss it or say, oh, and give excuses. But it's all wrapped together, guys. So understand this isn't just some theory that's out there. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is what they say. This is what we know they want to do. Right? By 2030 as well, they say they don't want any more, there'll be no more cell phones. Not that they don't want, there will be no more cell phones. This is what Elon Musk and the Nokia CEO have said, that everything will have to go to the Neuralink in your brain, as well as universal high income. There'll be no more jobs. Work will be optional. But see, the reason why they want the Neuralink, because I don't believe it's the mark of the beast. I don't think digital ID is. Right? They just don't fit. But I do. Those are control mechanisms for the beast system. So starting with digital ID, but then the Neuralink, well, they said they want collective consciousness. They want group thought. This utopia, the peace and safety they keep talking about, which is in the Bible end times prophecy. And then sudden destruction comes when they keep saying it, and it's all over with everything. But that is, they want to be able to control your mind. They have said that they're able to put false memories into your head, to erase memories, to have you to actually check and see how you're thinking. And this gets into thought crime. This is what Palantir is literally doing, guys. And outside of that, again, with his obsession, Peter Thiel's obsession with the Antichrist, are you seeing how things are starting to line up? That this isn't just some far off thing. This is happening, and it's happening right now. And most people just aren't paying attention to it.
This is scary. Peter Thiel is hosting a summit in San Francisco where he's going to be lecturing about the Antichrist for 4 days. Here's the invite, and as you can see, these lectures are off the record. It's just interesting because Peter Thiel believes that the Antichrist will force a suppression of technology, when one of the most common beliefs is that the Antichrist will not be one person, but a reoccurring manifestation of evil systems. You mean maybe like AI or surveillance systems like Peter Thiel's Palantir? It just seems a little contradictory. This is the guy that has been an advocate of various post-human technological solutions so that he could live forever. He believes in biodigital convergence, where robots have biological brains. And most importantly, he has been quoted saying, "We are creating God in the form of superintelligence. If you just say, what have we imagined God to be? What are its characteristics? We are building God in the form of technology." I don't know about you, but it feels a little bit like the wolf in sheep's clothing. I'm a Christian. Listen to me. Don't let them suppress my technology. That's the Antichrist.
Peter Thiel. He's doing a 4-day seminar on the Antichrist.
What?
I read this article by Christianity Today about the Acts 17 ministry. I think their intentions are good. They want to reach the tech industry with the gospel. The husband of the founder of Acts 17, he used to work for Peter Thiel at Palantir, and they went over to one tech industry dude's house to do like this house church, and Peter Thiel was there, and Peter Thiel just started talking about the Antichrist and stuff. And apparently all these Silicon Valley tech dudes were just like, we didn't know Peter Thiel was a Christian.
Peter Thiel is a libertarian, and there's a professor that he studied under. A lot of his quotes regarding Christianity are direct quotes from this professor. The professor and him are very, as far as like the Antichrist and stuff like that, there's this tension between the apocalypse coming and the Antichrist is the hero that saves everyone from it. His entire thing is like, something's gonna happen that makes you choose one or the other. But he defines himself, as far as his own religious views, as a heterodoxical Christian. It's the same root as heretic. He doesn't believe you need to evangelize. He's like, my faith is real for me. I don't need to convince you of it. You cannot call yourself a believer. And the last thing that Jesus said after his 3 years of ministry, death and resurrection, he says, go and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to obey the things I've commanded you. You cannot be a follower of that human and say, I don't have to teach want you to obey. It's in direct defiance. I think there is a political advantage that he's trying to pull from this. You either believe in the Jesus of the Bible or you don't believe in Jesus.
There's a big difference between having conversations and then being put up as a teacher and learning. Bible's very clear. People who teach should be very careful.
One of his arguments for like transhumanism, what I believe I got from it was his excuse was that Christians are transhumanism. It's the renewal of the spirit. You become a new person. Your soul is transformed. You're a transhuman.
You're not living. It's Christ that's living through you.
So that's almost like an excuse. And I'm like, this sounds like the Antichrist. That's why I like talking about it so much, because it's him.
Do I think he's the Antichrist? I don't. Like I told, it's too obvious. It's too on the nose. But believing in Jesus is not being a Christian. You have to believe that you are a sinner, that you were born a sinner, and that Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins, and that the only way to the Father, to God, to Yahweh, is through him, that he is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except by me. So claiming Christianity, a lot of people, they claim Jesus, they say they're Christian, but they don't know the gospel. They don't believe in the gospel. So this is just, it's, again, these are the last days, and people are being deceived in mass by so much, not just by this, but so many other.
Deposit right there, because it still comes back to the Great Commission, right? Jesus called us to be disciples, not Christians. Disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. Okay. The word Christian only appears 3 times in the Bible. It was a slight. It was a defaming term. And then James was like, well, they're calling us Christians. It's okay to be called a Christian. It's really a slight. But we were called to be disciples, not Christians. So anybody running around calling themselves a Christian and they have no idea what a disciple is not a disciple. You are not following Jesus and the principles that Melanie was stating. You can't just do it. It's work. It's work. There's a lot you got to give up. You got to take up the cross daily, right? There are just a lot of things that you got to do. That's why disciples are supposed to teach other disciples. It's multiplication. That could work. But what we are seeing is Antichrist behavior in Peter Thiel. And I will leave her video link so you can watch the rest of it. But what I did want to pull up is an actual email between, it was posted on February 2nd by Diligent Denizen, and it says, new Epstein emails with Peter Thiel declaring Epstein represents the Rothschilds and was inviting Thiel to Epstein's island. Peter Thiel was J.D. Vance's business partner, mentor, and big donor. In the email, Epstein tells Thiel good luck in China. Thiel founded Palantir, which heavily intertwined with U.S. Thiel was working with Epstein after 2008, soliciting a minor conviction, right? So this email is from 2016. So Epstein had already been convicted. Everybody knows he's pedophile. Everybody knows. Okay, but you're here. You are, Mr. Thiel, still in conversations. So certainly not in Saudi. Just think I will avoid the Middle East for the next decade or so. Right? So he's like, okay, should be back on the East Coast in late April, May, sometime in New York City or on island then. So he's talking about Epstein's Island. Now, you guys can't see this part. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Ooh, it's gigantic. But that line isn't going away, my little play line. But it says, as you probably know, I represent, and this is Jeffrey Epstein responding, as you probably know, I represent the Rothschilds. I was hoping to figure out a way for the bank that has $160 billion in management can do something in tech. So he's working with Teal because of the tech, right? Best client list in the world, prehistoric products. It can't wait. Good luck in China. I'll be in Europe again, 2028. I'll be in Europe again in 2028. That's interesting. So he was predicting 12 years ahead. If that means what it says 2028. All right. Or 20th to the 28th. Maybe that's what he was referring to, the date. We'll see. Because he was saying April, May. Okay, maybe the 20th to the 28th. Okay, maybe he was talking about days, not years. So then island. So if you want to come around the world going west, come to the island, or if you would like me to meet you in Saudi at the end of the month. Now, Peter Thiel already said, certainly not in Saudi. Like he doesn't want to be over there. But then at the end of it, he was like, if you want to meet in Saudi at the end of the month, it's still good. Yeah. So these conversations were happening. Now, the other thing that I also researched and brought up was, yeah, that was part of the email too, or the video, looking at Peter Thiel and JD Vance. Yeah. That was happening. So pulled up the video, and it says, do some of the video align with Agenda 2030? Yes, they do align with 2030 and what's coming up. Now, what I wanted to show right here is Peter Thiel's role regarding world government and the Antichrist. Thiel, PayPal and Palantir co-founder, tech investor, JD Vance backer, has no documented role promoting world government. In fact, he has repeatedly and publicly argued the opposite in recent lectures and writings. He identifies the push for a one world global state prompted via fear of existential risk like AI, climate change, nuclear war, or pandemics, all in the name of peace and safety as the essence of the Antichrist. There is a warning in the Bible talking when they talk about peace and safety. Be on your guard. Be on your guard. Again, I think he is moving in Antichrist behavior. Is he the Antichrist himself? No. Anything against Christ is Antichrist. It is what it is. But people keep looking for this individual, wondering like who he is or where he's coming from. Will it be AI? Will it not be? So we can be on the right side with God, right? With the sheep instead of the goats. Yeah. You have to be ready spiritually and be a disciple. Okay, because that's what Jesus calls us to be, according to Matthew 28:18-20, the Great Commission, period. Whether you like it or not. It is what it is. Now, let's move on. I found another video talking about how food is going to be listed not for human consumption.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel again. Thank y'all so much for coming over, man. Hey, I appreciate y'all sending me all these videos, man. When I read this title, I thought I read it wrong. I was like, wait, what? I got this video here from Lily Kane, which I'll leave in the description for you guys to check out more and even subscribe. It says, they're putting not for human consumption on your groceries. That don't even make sense. Hopefully there's some evidence in here. My mind is just blown right now, because if I go to the grocery store and I see that Like, how is that even legal to be in the store? We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
You know those scary black box warnings you usually see on heavy-duty prescription drugs? The ones that basically say, pay attention, this stuff could actually kill you? Well, in 2026, those labels are moving out of the pharmacy and into your grocery cart. And once you see what's behind this change, you're never going to look at a box of crackers or a healthy granola bar the same way. If you're new here, my name is Lily. I'm a certified nutrition health coach. And y'all, we are in the middle of like a total health revolution. It is changing so quickly, I'm having a hard time keeping up over here. But today we are going to cover the 3 massive changes happening right now in the food world. 1, the not recommended for human consumption label, a new labeling law that is honestly making me laugh. I think it's...
Wait, this product contains an ingredient that is not recommended for human consumption by the appropriate authority in Australia and Europe. What? So what? Am I tripping? Why are they making it? Because they know people ain't gonna read and they know people ain't gonna care. Dude, this is crazy. You know, real quick, when we went to Italy for like a month, we were walking so much every day, over 22,000 steps a day. And we were eating a lot, but like they don't put certain ingredients in their foods that they put over here, you know, to make you feel fat and stuff. You know, every time we would eat something over there, you would still feel like, you know what I mean? And the portions were different. This is crazy.
Hilarious, but for big food companies, they are furious. They're literally trying to sue to stop it. Secondly, we'll cover the global magnifying glass, why Canada and the US are putting little magnifying glasses on your food. And lastly, we'll cover the secret cleanup and lawsuits, how big food is fighting to keep you in the dark, meanwhile changing their product recipes. So whether you're a label reader or someone who just wants to be able to buy their food without needing a chemistry degree, well, these 3 changes affect everyone walking into the grocery store today. And my goal is to help keep you guys informed with all of the changes in our food supply and how to live your healthiest lives. And if you appreciate this kind of content, then don't be silly, subscribe to Lily, and let's jump in. The first big change is the not recommended for human consumption label. In 2025, Governor Abbott signed Senate Bill 25, the Make Texas Healthy Again Act. Now, if you don't live in Texas, you might be thinking, okay, so what does Texas have to do with me? I live in Missouri, or someone lives in California. But the thing is, this law is changing how big food labels their food. And a big food corporation doesn't want to have to change just the way a box and a label is for Texas and then make their boxes all different for other parts of the country. Instead, because Texas has such a massive market, whatever Texas ends up doing, the rest of the country ends up getting the benefits, eh? Thank you, Texas.
Texas could change the way Americans eat snack foods nationwide, requiring a warning label on many popular food and drinks, reading not recommended for human consumption.
That could impact candy.
I can't wait to see the comments because, like, am I tripping here? If it's not for human consumption, again, how is it on the shelf? How is it even being made? Like, you would think.
So now I'm going to put my compliance hat on because it's saying it's not recommended. It's not saying that you can't eat it. It's not saying that it will lead to your downfall. We're recommending. It's a recommendation. It is a suggestion. That's what that is. It's a suggestion that it's not for human consumption. So if you eat it, it's your fault. If you get diabetes, you have a heart attack. You can't blame the product because the only person putting the product in your face is you. The person buying the product is you. So they're putting the onus on the consumer with this label. And everybody kind of wrap their head around that. But that's what's happening. It's your fault. It's your fault, human. We told you we're not recommending that you eat this because there's chemicals in here. There's this product, in essence, isn't good for you. So if you eat it and you get sick, it's not our fault if you get sick. It's not our fault if you need a treatment. It's not our fault. It's your fault. I'm just saying. That's what that's about. It's about putting the onus on the consumer and taking the onus off of the corporation. Because now the corporation's like, well, we warned you. We told you it wasn't fit for human consumption. So why did you buy it and eat it? Yeah. It's that part.
Somebody would be at whatever warehouse where this stuff is being made and would be shutting it down.
Like Skittles and M&Ms, chips, including Doritos and Ruffles, and drinks like Gatorade and Mountain Dew.
It's targeting products using ingredients like bleached flour, food dyes, sweeteners, oils, and preservatives. Those are legal and common in many processed foods in the U.S., but some have faced regulation in other countries.
I believe that the rest of the nation will look to Texas and say, they're on to something. And just maybe we can curb the trend of us spending more on healthcare than any other nation in the world.
This law targets 44 specific chemical additives like red 40, yellow 5, and titanium dioxide. This law requires a warning label that says, warning, this product contains an ingredient that is not recommended for human consumption by authorities in Australia, Canada, the EU, or the UK.
What the hell?
I don't know why I find that so funny. Honestly, I guess it's supposed to be really sad that they would be incorporating ingredients in their products that are naughty. But, I think at this point I gotta just find the humor in it.
Most food dyes are made with synthetic petroleum-based chemicals. They have no nutritional value and are only used to enhance the colors of food. Kellogg's cereals, including Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks, contain yellow 6, yellow 5, red 40, and blue 1. According to the Cleveland Clinic, red 40 can lead to hyperactivity, including ADHD.
Now, here's the thing. They make the same products for Europe without all of this stuff. Now, it's not as bright because they're using real food products, right? They're using real food. So they can use real food that's not damaging. They could do it everywhere because they already do it for Europe. But they're not going to do it here in America. They're just going to add a label to it. And Europe says, hey, you can't put that over here. And if you're going to make these things, because I'm just going to call it things, I can't call it food, you need to put a label on it that discloses and disclaims that this is not for human consumption based on what we're saying. We're telling you it's not, good for human consumption. And we're recommending that's not, right? It's a recommendation again. So you put the onus back on the consumer.
Behavioral challenges like irritability and depression, skin irritation, and migraines. The other dyes have been shown to have negative side effects.
If you really think about it, the wording is so particular. It's not like they're saying you have to put a label that says contains artificial food dyes or a label that says low in nutritional value. Instead, it's literally a label that says not recommended for human consumption. This is what we're calling it, the black box of the grocery store. Man. Traditionally, the black box warning was reserved for the most dangerous prescription drugs on the market. But now that same level of seriousness is hitting the food aisles. And sometimes I do wonder if by adding new labels to packages, if it's actually going to change how people shop and what they consume. Are people really going to stop buying things like Fruity Pebbles?
No. You see people eating all types of stuff that's not good for them.
I know my show's running long. I'm gonna end it right there. But all these cereals, is this gonna affect people that have EBT cards? Are they still going to be able to buy this stuff or not? Because they can't buy soda, they can't buy chips, right? Because that's junk food, right? They can no longer buy, Reese's Pieces, M&Ms. They can't buy any junk food. They only buy whole food products. Are they going to be able to still buy cereals like this? Or are they going to be able to just only buy cereals that don't contain any of this stuff? There should be a demand here in the United States. That they sell the same products that they do in Europe. Why in the world would you be selling products here that are not recommended for human consumption? That's the bigger question. We have an FDA, and yet they're selling products that have pretty much a food black box warning. So I will definitely make sure the link is in the repost. But thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for Women in Wellness Wednesday. Tomorrow we will be back with Mighty Men. Thursday, it will be open mic if anybody would like to join me on the broadcast. So again, remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.